Welcome back. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India's RSS-inspired state-sponsored terrorism will have global consequences. The Prime Minister issued the statement as 42 people, mostly Muslims, have been killed in sectarian clashes in New Delhi. The Prime Minister said the world needs to take action against this extremism in India. Khan said the Delhi carnage will eventually lead to radicalization of Indian Muslims. The Prime Minister said Hindutva ideology has pushed Kashmiri youths towards radicalization. In India, New Delhi's week-long riots during anti-citizenship law protests have drastically compromised citizens' safety as the deadly violence erupted. A small hospital in a densely packed Muslim neighborhood found itself at the epicenter of the unrest. More in this report.
42 people were killed as Hindu radicals targeted 4 mosques, 79 houses and 52 shops owned by Muslims. Al-Hind Hospital was flooded with patients, and it has also become a place of refuge for people whose homes were burnt or destroyed.
I was beaten and they vandalized my house and set everything on fire. I was beaten in this situation. We came here on Tuesday. They torched 3 houses and left nothing.
Doctors described being overwhelmed when dozens of wounded streamed into the 15-bed, 2-story building. Some were carried on people's shoulders, others on wooden carts, stretching the hospital's resources to the limits.
The mob particularly targeted vital organs. It felt as the attackers knew human anatomy as if they were from a medical profession. The 2 injured and other injuries that we saw were in the same condition, as all the stabs are in the vital organs.
69 people have been killed in various incidents since India passed the Citizenship Amendment Act on 11th December.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has warned the Syrian government will pay the price for the deaths of the Turkish troops in Idlib. Speaking in Istanbul, Erdogan said he has told Russia's President Vladimir Putin to stand aside and let Ankara deal with the Syrian forces alone. He said Turkey does not intend to leave Syria right now. Erdogan also said Ankara will keep the doors open for refugees heading to Europe. Tensions between Turkey and Russia rose after 33 Turkish soldiers died in an airstrike in Syria on Friday. But the Russian Foreign Ministry said the 2 sides have agreed to reduce tensions in Idlib after days of talks in Ankara. Arab League has called for an immediate ceasefire between all the warring parties in northwestern Syria. In a statement, Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait warned against the seriousness of escalated military confrontations in Syria. He said the military escalation in northwestern Syria has formed a model of blatant violation of humanitarian and international law. Ghait said the fighting has caused an unprecedented humanitarian disaster by displacing over 1 million Syrians. He also called for the negotiations sponsored by the UN to activate the political course. The Secretary General said implementing the political process, according to the UN Security Council Resolution 2254, was crucial. Tensions between Ankara and Damascus are rising in Idlib after Turkey lost 33 soldiers in an attack carried out by the regime. Earlier, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a ceasefire in Syria before the situation spirals out of the control. Speaking at the Security Council meeting, Guterres said the killing of Turkish troops in Syria is one of the most alarming moments in the 9-year war. More in this report.
Tensions in Syria have been high since Turkish and Syrian government forces began attacking each other in Idlib province. The 50-member UN Security Council met after Russian-backed Syrian troops killed 33 Turkish soldiers. At the meeting, Turkey and Russia exchanged heated arguments. The Turkish ambassador said it's time for a political solution to the Syrian conflict, or civilians will continue to suffer.
Mr. President, yesterday's events are a stark reminder that the regime is hell-bent on continuing its attacks to intimidate Syrian civilians, as well as destroy Syrian opposition and the prospects for a political solution.
The Russian envoy, Vasily Nebenzia, argued the Syrian army has the right to respond to any ceasefire violations within the Idlib zone. But, he said, Moscow is ready to reduce conflict in the area to avoid such tragedies in the future.
We regret the fact that the Turkish soldiers died, just as we regret the reports about the death of Syrian soldiers who were convinced that respecting the agreements, including on the conflicting, will avoid such tragedies in the future. Our forces on the ground are prepared to work towards that.
The US President, Donald Trump, also condemned the attack on Turkish soldiers. In a statement, Trump called on Russia and Syria to stop the Idlib operation.
Hundreds of refugees have stormed a border crossing in Turkey in an attempt to get to Europe. The move comes as a response to the escalating war in northwestern Syria. One refugee said his family has slept outdoors in freezing temperatures with the hope of finding a better life in Europe. Migrants hoping to cross to Europe from Turkey are trying sea vessels and land vehicles in order to make the trip. Since 2016, Europe has consistently relied on Turkey to hold the flow of Syrian refugees. Security forces in Greece fire guns and use ground bombs to prevent the refugees from entering the country. Earlier, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Ankara has begun to allow the refugees to travel onto Europe. The UN envoy for Libya, Ghassan Salameh, says 3 days of political talks in Geneva ended without any result. Meanwhile, witnesses in Tripoli say bombardment in the last 24 hours was the heaviest since the 12th of January when the ceasefire was agreed on. The dialogue was underway as part of the peace process to get a ceasefire in the conflict-ridden country. Salameh said talks only led to an agenda and the terms of the reference for the next round with no concrete steps towards a ceasefire. In a statement, he said that there have been serious violations of the conflict agreement in the country in the past 24 hours. He said 6 of the 13 representatives of the High State Council have left for Libya. Salameh said he will invite the parties to Geneva for a second round next month. Malaysia's King Abdullah has appointed former Interior Minister Muhyiddin Yassin as the country's new Prime Minister. Earlier, Interim Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad claimed to have secured the majority to become the new Premier with the support of his on-off ally Anwar Ibrahim. In a statement, the King's Palace said Muhyiddin will be sworn in tomorrow. It said the process to appoint the Prime Minister cannot be delayed. The Prime Minister appointee Yassin has asked for all the Malaysians to accept decision by the National Palace. Earlier, Mohammed Said agreed to be the prime ministerial candidate after talks with coalition parties. Uncertainty has loomed over Malaysian politics since Mahathir Mohamad resigned from the office last Friday. In China, another 47 people have died from the coronavirus in the last 24 hours, which puts the number of the dead at over 2,800. The National Health Commission has recorded 427 new cases, raising the number of infections to over 79,000. More in this report.
While there has been a slowdown in the number of virus casualties in China, the outbreak is intensifying in some other countries. South Korea says it has recorded 594 more cases today, making this the country's largest infection increase to date. Japan has closed schools, Switzerland has banned rallies, while flights are being cancelled worldwide. Iran's health ministry says 34 people have died in the country. It says it rejects reports of the BBC of 210 deaths. The World Health Organization says the risk of new coronavirus at a global level is now very high.
We are on the highest level of alert or the highest level of risk assessment in terms of spread and in terms of impact. But that is not in order to alarm or scare people. And I think this is a reality check for every government on the planet. Wake up, get ready. This virus may be on its way and you need to be ready.
The UN says it is concerned by the spread of the disease. Secretary General is urging the international community to step up efforts and combat the illness together.
The greatest enemy right now is not the virus, it is fear, rumors and stigma. Now it's the time for all governments to step up and do everything possible to contain the disease, and to do so without stigmatization and respecting human rights. We know containment is possible, but the window of opportunity is narrowing.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has banned entry of citizens from the member states of Gulf Cooperation Council in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina over virus fears.
Slovakia is voting in its first parliamentary elections since an investigative journalist and his fiancée were murdered in 2018. The couple's shooting shocked the nation and toppled Prime Minister Robert Fico, but his Social Democratic Party remains in office. All 150 seats in the national parliament are up for the grabs. Today's elections are seen as a battle between populist far-right radicals and a new crop of liberal politicians. Opinion polls show the long-ruling populist Social Democracy Party is leading with almost 17%. It shows the centrist Ordinary People and Independent Personalities Party has the support of 15.5%. Slovaks have pledged to throw out the ruling party amid outrage over the murder of the journalist who was investigating high-level corruption. Protesters and security forces have clashed as anti-government protests flared up in Chile's capital of Santiago. Protesters are exerting more pressure on the government after months of unrest over inequality and pensions and elitism. Riot police used water cannon to disperse protesters who threw missiles at police and gathered around a burning barricade in a show of defiance. Chile's President Sebastián Piñera replaced the country's education minister in a bid to appease the students-led movement. Former Education Undersecretary Raúl Figueroa has replaced the outgoing Marcelo Ceballos, who has faced staunch criticism from the protesters.
To the new education minister, Raúl Figueroa, if there is an area where we play a part in the future of our country, if we want to have a country with freedoms and opportunities and without restrictions and frustrations, it is in the area of education.
Si hay un área.
Let's go live to Qatar's capital, Doha, where already the peace deal has been signed between the U.S. and the Taliban, and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is speaking with the media at the moment. Let's watch that.
It means that our men and women in uniform will incur fewer risks, our financial burden will be eased, and our brave troops will return home. This is a hopeful moment. But it's only the beginning. There's a great deal of hard work ahead on the diplomatic front. Finally, let me speak directly to those invested in Afghanistan. First, to America's military and intelligence warriors. I know that some of you may be on your 5th or 6th tours of duty, maybe even more, far from the comforts of home. As the CI director, it was my honor to join you in dealing blow after blow to this vicious enemy. Many of you wear black and silver bracelets in tribute to your brothers and sisters who died, so that your countrymen might live in peace and security. We will not squander what they and you have won through blood, sweat, and tears. You've kept America safe alongside our allies and Afghan partners. You've helped give the people of Afghanistan this opportunity for a brighter future. Second, to our NATO allies and other coalition partners who have sacrificed right alongside of us, we will continue to look to you and to all countries which support these agreements to help maintain this nascent peace. Whether it's Norway or Australia or Japan or any of our other valued friends and partners, we know you share our cautious hope. To Afghanistan's neighbors, including Pakistan, we thank you for your efforts in helping reach these historic agreements and make clear our expectation that you will continue to do your part to promote a peaceful and prosperous Afghanistan so that the country and region can reap the benefits of lasting peace. And to the Afghan people, this is your moment. Wars have tortured your country since 1979. No more violence. No more chaos. Listen to the voices of all, young and old, men and women, from every region, from every tribe, from every ethnicity, and from every religion. Factions will undoubtedly emerge that want to spoil our good work. We must call them out and reject their schemes for discord. I'll close by urging all parties to heed the wisdom of the pursuit of peace that's found in Scripture. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Today we've sought peace. We will continue to pursue it. Thank you, and I'm happy to take a few questions.
Thanks. We'll start with Francesco Fantamaggi, AFP.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I wanted to know exactly what will make you stop the withdrawal if the Taliban don't respect their agreement. Is it counterterrorism commitments, or is it the outcome of the negotiations, inter-Afghan negotiation, meaning that the timeline for the complete withdrawal is 14 months? Would they have to complete an agreement, intra-Afghan agreement by then, or just make progress in their negotiations? Thank you.
So we've spent many months getting, getting to where we are today. And there are a set of interlocking understandings, implementation agreements, that are clearly spelt out. I am confident that each party that's been part of this, the Afghan government, ourselves, the Taliban, understands precisely the commitments that they have made and the response. Not only the response about the speed and magnitude of the withdrawal of not only American but coalition forces, but the other elements of support that the United States provide. We've made commitments to continue to provide that security assurances for the Afghan government, but it is our very expectation that the Taliban will live up to their commitments. But no one should be surprised. The United States will do whatever it takes to keep the American people safe. And so to the extent the Taliban fail to live up to their commitments, President Trump is as committed to peace as he is to ensuring that the American people never suffer an attack again from Afghanistan.
Thanks. We'll have
The United States and the Taliban have signed a historic peace deal, paving the way to end the nearly 19-year-long war in Afghanistan. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was addressing a press conference after the signing of the peace deal. He specifically thanked Pakistan for the key efforts and important role played by the country in making this peace deal happen. We'll include more stories in the bulletin right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Climate change is taking its toll on different parts of the world, and the countries are finding ways to reduce carbon imprints. Now, Norway has come up with a new solution to tackle the menace of plastic with recycling. Details in this report.
Every minute, 15 tons of plastic is being dumped in the world's oceans, and the situation is growing from bad to worse. Though Norwegian recycling industry is cognizant of the threats, they think the problem lies not in plastic itself, but in its usage.
I think the big discussion is, we have a problem with plastic. Is the problem the plastic itself, or is it the way that we as a consumer behave ourselves?
With a 90% recycling rate, the plastic deposit system is viewed as a key move to the country's success. Customers pay extra cents for plastic bottles and get refund after returning the empty ones. The EU member countries have been given a target to recycle 90% of plastic bottles up to 2029, but Norway is 10 years ahead of the deadline.
EU countries has to return 77% of all the bottles in 2025 and 90% in 2029. And we believe that the only way to achieve that is through deposit systems.
More than 1 billion plastic bottles and aluminum cans were returned in the country in 2018.
Everything which can be returned, I return. I collect everything and I take it to the deposit machine when my bag is full.
Norwegians think people need to work out to keep plastic out of nature.
In Paris, several actresses have walked out of the César Awards ceremony after Roman Polanski won the Best Director award. Polanski was convicted in 1977 of statutory rape.
This year's awards have been mired in controversy after Polanski's latest film, An Officer and a Spy, received 12 nominations. Earlier this month, the entire board of the Caesar Awards resigned because of anger prompted by Polanski topping the list of nominations. Actress Adele Haenel, who recently alleged that she was sexually assaulted by another French director, was the first to walk out of the room. In an interview, Haenel said honoring Polanski is equivalent to promoting rape. Meanwhile, protesters against Polanski's nomination urged the film industry to stop encouraging rape culture.
For us, Polanski's 12 nominations is telling of a system within the French film industry which awards men accused of sexual abuse and rape at the expense of women and minors, generally very young women. And by awarding these men, we're putting in place a system of impunity at their expense, and this protects them of their acts and maintains victims in a form of silence. And all this makes sexual violence continue within the film industry. This encourages rape culture.
Polanski was convicted of assaulting a 13-year-old girl. He escaped to France before he could be sentenced, where he has remained ever since.
Car-making giant Volkswagen has agreed on a settlement with the German Consumer Federation, the VZBV, over the 2015 emission scandal. A court in Braunschweig announced that 260,000 German customers will receive compensation depending on the model and the age of the car. The settlement is significantly less than $15 billion payout U.S. judge ordered the company to pay American consumers. The German consumers can choose to either accept the settlement or continue fighting for more money in individual lawsuits. The 2015 Dieselgate is one of the biggest car scandals in history, affecting the automotive industry on a global scale. Volkswagen had installed software in their 11 million vehicles, allowing them to cheat emission tests. And now the weather updates. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus Special.